I'm going to tell you how so people can easily remember who you are so they can find you quickly and they can watch more of your videos and tell other people about you. And we're starting right now. What is going on, fellow YouTubers? My name is Nick, and because I make YouTube videos too on 2 different channels, I know how difficult it is to find a name for a YouTube channel. So I'm going to help you with that. I have 5 tips that are going to help you through your process of finding a username for YouTube. But before we get started, let me know down in the comments below the problems that you're running into when you're hunting for your username so that I can address them later in a future video. Thanks. Number 1, you want to make your channel name as easy to remember as possible. That's an obvious thing to say, but a lot of people make names that are long, drawn-out names with a bunch of numbers in them, and it becomes difficult to remember, especially if you're saying, hey, I just watched this guy's video and it's awesome. You should check out his channel. Oh, really? What's his channel name? Oh, it's John88763. I'm the man for 3. As you can see, that is a very difficult name to remember. So you want to keep your name as short as possible. And you also don't want to use numbers in your name if you can avoid it. And the reason for that is if I say, hey, check out John876's channel, then the person that I'm telling, they don't know if 876 is the numbers 876, or they don't know if the 876 is spelled out. So you want to make sure that everything is as clear and we'll just say dummy proof as possible. Number 2, once you have a name that you think that you're going to run with, you want to say it out loud. You want to say it out loud a lot and make sure that it's something that's easily understood if you don't have a visual reference. Here's what I mean. My other channel that I have outside of this one is called All Our Questions. And I've been on a few podcasts because of it. And with that channel, I've had more than once to where when I say the name, the podcast host will say all your questions. For whatever reason, even though I did say it out loud a bunch of times and it made sense to me, when other people hear it, it doesn't always make sense. So make sure that you keep little details like that in your name in mind when you're naming your channel so that you don't run into problems like that in the future. This is another reason that you don't want to use a number in your name, because every single time you say your name in a situation like that, you're going to have to explain that if your name is John 5, that the 5 is a number instead of spelled out to be F-I-V-E. So, it's just easier that way. And you want to make it as easy as possible because the whole goal with a good username is 1, it brands your channel properly. 2, it's something easy to remember so people can easily spread the word about your channel. Number 3, whatever name that you decide to go with, you want to make sure that you can get the domain name for it. And when I say the domain name, you can roll with a .net or a .org or a .co, but I personally prefer to grab the .com. If a .com isn't available, I'm not getting the name. And the same thing goes for social media. If you can't get the social media accounts that go with your name, then you might want to keep looking for another name. And the reason for this is you want to make sure that you get your name on all of the social media outlets because 1, you want to make sure that you brand everything so that people can find you easily on every platform they go to. And 2, you don't want somebody else taking your name, or you don't want people confusing you with someone else. So you want to make sure that you secure all the social media accounts and your .com or other version of the web domain with your YouTube channel name. Does that make sense? Okay, number 4, make sure that your name is relevant to the type of videos that you are putting out. The reason for this one is on all of your social media accounts and your domain, if your name is Dave Space Videos, just as an example, then when somebody sees your username, because they're most likely going to see your username before they see your content, then they know that Dave Space Videos has most likely got something to do with space videos, right? So it's relevant. So they say, okay, hey, I'm somebody that likes space stuff. So I'm going to click on this guy's username and see what his space videos are about. So that brought you somebody because your name was relevant to the videos that you're making. However, let's say that you make gaming videos, but you decided initially to name your channel Dave's Space Videos. What's going to happen then? Well, people are going to see your username. They're going to click on your username. They're going to get to your channel and they're going to say, oh, wait a minute. I was expecting space videos and this guy's showing me gaming videos. This isn't what I'm looking for. So I'm not going to watch his videos. I'm definitely not going to subscribe to his channel because his name wasn't relevant to the content he's making that brought me here in the first place. Number 5, don't be afraid to use tools to help you come up with your username. For example, There's a website called brandbucket.com where if I'm trying to name something, I'll always hit brandbucket.com. The reason for that is because they have a bunch of variables of different types of names, and they're awesome names because they are a domain name reseller. So they have a lot of really creative stuff on there. So I hit there first just to see if I spawn any ideas from their suggestions or from the stuff that they have on offer. Another awesome tool that is often overlooked when it comes to coming up with username ideas for your YouTube channel is a thesaurus. A thesaurus is great because if somebody already has the name that you want on YouTube, you can hit a thesaurus to come up with other variations of the name that you want and plug those in and see if any of those are available. So that can be an extremely helpful tool. When you are searching for your username, another great tool that I want to recommend to you is called Namecheck.com. It's actually Namechk. I believe I'll put the link to it down in the description below, but basically this website, you can just type in whatever name it is that you want, and it will show you across all of the major social media platforms if that name is available or not. So it's going to save you a ton of time looking for your username. Now it's time for the subscriber shout out. Let's do it. All right, guys, today's subscriber shout out goes out to Why Not. This channel is a very creative channel. It's something that I haven't seen personally on YouTube before. Basically what it is he takes a hot metal ball, right? He takes a steel metal ball and he takes a flamethrower to this thing and gets it just flaming red hot, and then he puts it on top of things or puts it into cups filled with things or whatever and destroys them with it. It's pretty awesome. And as you can see here by his number count on his views, this was uploaded a week ago, 9,756 views. 2 weeks ago, 7,842 views. People are liking this channel. And right now he's only got 802 subscribers. So head over there, check out this channel. If you enjoy the content that he's making and you like watching things get destroyed by a flaming hot metal ball, then you're really going to like what's going on over here. So head over there and check out Why Not, and make sure that you remember to subscribe. If you think their channel is something that you might be interested in, then definitely head over there and check it out. Make sure you leave a comment and subscribe to their channel if you are into their type of content, and make sure that you tell them Nick sent you. Also, if you are a new YouTuber, you want to make sure that you head over to tubertools.com once you get your username figured out, because you're going to need channel headers, you're going to need video graphics, you're going to need an end card and things like that. TuberTools has all of that stuff, and it's also a resource site for other things YouTube related that you might need. If you are not already subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button somewhere on this page so you can get more videos like this in the future. And if you have a question that you want answered, use the hashtag NickNiven in the comments with your question, and I'll see what I can do about making a video for you. With all of that out of the way, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.
That's a mountain laughing at you. So come prepared in a Kia Sportage. With available all-wheel drive, 237 horsepower, and 260 pound-feet of torque, and none in the less torque and horsepower-equipped Honda CR-V Touring. So you can turn that mountain's laugh into a whimper. Hurry in for great deals at Kia's President's Day sales event.
So how do you come up with a cool name for your YouTube channel? In this video, I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite tools, tips, and some of the biggest mistakes that I see people making so that you can come up with an awesome name for your channel. Coming up. Hey, what's up, guys? Sean here with Think Media, bringing you the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. And on this channel, we do a lot of tech gear reviews, as well as tips and strategy videos just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. And hey, check out show notes and links in the description at any time during this video. There's a lot of cool resources for coming up with a name for your channel. So check those out at any time. Let's jump into the video. So coming up with a cool and memorable name for your brand is super important. And I actually wish I had a lot of the information I'm going to be sharing in this video years ago when I started on YouTube. And I also wish that I thought a little bit bigger, because I know this video is about coming up with a YouTube name, but I really encourage you to be thinking about your brand name, thinking about a website, your social media, the overall brand that you want to build online, and not just your YouTube channel. So this video is going to be broken into 3 steps. The first one is how to come up with a name. The second one is some of my favorite tools. And then the third step is going to be all about some of the mistakes that I think everybody should avoid when trying to come up with a solid name or even rebrand their channel. So let's jump into it. So how do you actually come up with a name for your YouTube channel? Well, probably one of the easiest ways is actually to just use your first and last name. If you're stuck, this is actually a really good way to go, especially if you're building a personal brand. You know, I do a lot of work in the entrepreneur space. And when I think about that space, I think about people like Tony Robbins, Chalene Johnson, Gary Vaynerchuk, Marie Forleo, or whoever, right? Those brand names, Lewis Howes, their YouTube channels are just their first and their last name. And what's nice about that is that as you grow and progress, you're really just building real estate around your name and not necessarily around a brand name that could change when you change, maybe even what your niche or what your topic is, whereas you evolve. So that's probably one of the easiest ways to pick out a name, is just your first and last name. The second option, of course, is coming up with like an actual brand or creative name of some sort. And so here's a few tips if this is the direction that you're going. One, I think it's very powerful if you include the topic of your YouTube channel in the name. Meaning, is the name actually relevant to your content? So some of my favorite brand names out there, one of them is Nerd Fitness. And what I love about that name is it's a brand name and it's a fitness brand that's helping not just learn fitness tips, but specifically for a specific group of people. So you have the topic and you also have really the niche, gamers, nerds, you know, cosplay, whatever. Nerd Fitness, super solid name. Another one is, say, like Epic Mealtime, and that's a very popular channel on YouTube. It's a normal cooking channel, and you add the epic on top of it. And if you've ever seen the channel, it's a lot of outrageous, like 10,000 calorie meals, a lot of just epicness to what they're doing. So again, a solid name. And so if you were thinking about this, let's say you had like a real estate brand, you're doing a YouTube channel with real estate tips, you could do something like Rocking Real Estate, you know, or whatever it is. And you've got kind of the actual topic included in a creative, sticky, and memorable name. Another variation of this would be to do a hybrid name. And so that's where you do your topic and then your name. So for instance, let's say you were doing After Effects with Austin and the channel was all about After Effects tips, or maybe Beauty with Brittany, you know, and you're also seeing that kind of rhyming in the same first letter. But just, you could try some things like that, like what is your topic and then what is maybe your first name or a nickname of some sort. And so that's another option. And then one of the things that you want to think about here is, again, make it memorable and make it sticky. And so ways to do that would be like Fierce Fitness, and that rhyming as well as the first few letters there kind of makes it memorable. One of my favorite YouTube channels is called Charisma on Command. And I think that's a great name. It's very sticky. The channel is all about, you know, how to build your charisma, be more effective in social situations, even be better on camera, all those types of things. But a really solid name that is memorable and that is also sticky. And then the last tip on picking out your name is Model the Masters. And that's actually a good name. But what I mean by that is actually look at some of the channels you look up to, look at some of your favorite online brands, and look at how they name their stuff, and then maybe just use it as a framework or a formula. So if you like that Charisma on Command vibe, what words could you plug in there for your name that's your topic, as well as maybe an adjective or something that has some energy to it for the name. So we talked about in step one is kind of how to pick out your name in different name formats. Step two is adding some tools to the mix. And so some of my favorite tools are, one, simply thesaurus.com. You know, when you're looking maybe for an adjective, if you're going that kind of brand name direction, that is a great way to think about what you want to convey. Maybe it's, you know, motivational, or maybe it's fierce, you know, fitness, and but you like somebody has that, so you're trying to type in fierce and see other variations of that. I think a thesaurus is a great tool. And then another set of tools is, I'll link up in the description below, but are some websites like Bust a Name or Nameboy or Name Mesh. And these are actually sites that help you pick out a domain name. It actually lets you know what's available, but they also give you some creative combos. And so it says enter 2 words, and it gives you some variations. It'll even mix up some of the adjectives, and it'll also let you know, which we'll talk about in a second, if the actual .com or any domain is available, which I think is important. I think that if you're watching this channel, you're part of the Think Media TV community, that I really want you to be thinking bigger than just YouTube. be thinking about building an actual brand, building really even a business. Like, you're an entrepreneur, be thinking outside of the box and be thinking about your brand overall, not just on YouTube. So definitely check out that list of resources and go through those websites. And I bet that if you spend, 10 or 30 minutes like entering some different words into those websites, you're going to discover a lot of cool ideas for coming up with a cool name. And then the final step here, number 3, I want to talk about is some of the biggest mistakes that I see people making when it comes to picking out a name. And I think you should run your name through this framework first to really avoid, pitfalls later on. And so the first one is not checking to see who online is maybe already using that name. And I don't just mean because of copyright. I just mean that if you, for instance, thought, maybe you're not watching this channel, and obviously you are watching this channel, but if you never knew about this channel and you're like, Think Media would be a cool name, type it into Google, type it into YouTube, you're going to see that a lot of market share, a lot of ranked videos are taken around that name, right? So you might want to keep looking. Same thing on maybe your personal brand. You can't help if you have the exact same name as somebody else and they're really established online, but you could think about a way to position yourself where they may be adding another word, like After Effects with Austin, as opposed to maybe some person named Austin that is like ranking everywhere, by kind of niching things down. So the first mistake is just not doing the research to see if anybody else has the name. And then secondly, the big mistake that I see is not checking to see if your name is available on social media. So for instance, when we were starting Video Influencers, Benji and I, a few years ago, one of the things that we did was we researched to see if the name was used by anybody else. Then we actually went around to see are the social media accounts taken? And what we mean is like the actual URL. So like Instagram.com/video influencers. We got Facebook, we got YouTube, we got Instagram, we got Twitter with no S because we maxed out the characters with just video influencer. So this is, I think, a great thing to do when you're just starting out, and even if you want to expand onto other social media platforms, to look to see if maybe a brand name or a rebrand is available. Now, don't get stuck here, because there's plenty of people that are crushing it at world-class levels that have a different Instagram name than their YouTube channel, than their Facebook page. But it is really nice if you can have unity across those brands. And so just put it on kind of your to-do list to run through your process of coming up with a name. And a cool resource that I wrote down here is Namecheck.com. That's namechk.com, which is actually a place where you can type in all the characters of your name and it'll tell you what platforms it's taken on. So like when I type in video influencer, you start seeing the platform say, oh, it's taken here, 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 and here. And it lets you, rather than going from platform to check, it lets you do it all in one place. So that's a great resource. I'll link that up in the description as well. Mistake number 3 I see people making is not seeing if the domain is available, the URL, because even if you don't want to start a website now, it's really great to get the domain. And you can also always just redirect that domain to your YouTube channel between now and maybe whenever you might want to start a YouTube channel. So the other thing about this is I really still believe that even though there's all these other URLs out there, .net, whatever, now it's like .life, .vegas, there's like all these URLs. I still think that .com is the most powerful, especially if you want to build a world-class brand. Now, the disclaimer is, again, don't get stuck here. For video influencers, we can't even find the .com person. We offered him money, he's just not responding. Somebody bought the .com and just sits on it and they're not using it. But we got .net. And so again, run your names through these filters, but don't necessarily let it make or break the name. So we just said, fine, we'll go with .net. And it's not like it's a huge problem. But ideally, if you can get the .com, if you can get the social media, if nobody else has it, you're on a great trajectory for finding an awesome name. Mistake number 4 is using numbers in your name. And so I like to say avoid this, rather than just using like Sean Cannell, it'd be like Sean Cannell 65 or Sean Cannell 11 or whatever. And usually why this is a problem is, number 1, if you say it verbally on like a live or on a podcast or with somebody, they might not know if it's typed out. They might not know if it's actually spelled out, the numbers versus the actual word. And it also can just not, potentially not be very professional, right? And a lot of times back in the day, I remember when email started, that's how old school I am. I remember, it'd be like, oh shoot, my email address is not available on Hotmail. So instead of doing Sean Cannell at hotmail.com, it'd be like Sean Cannell 21564. you know, or just like your favorite lucky number, like the year of your first car, and all that's cool. But again, it kind of has that vibe, right? It's not necessarily super professional. So if possible, unless there's a very strategic and intentional reason, maybe like it actually is on brand and there is a reason for doing it, well, then absolutely do it. But typically I recommend avoiding numbers in your name. Mistake number 5 is if the name is hard to spell. Because think about this, you know, we live in a world where you really want to think about the practicality of sharing that name and someone trying to remember it and then maybe type it in on social media later or figure out what it is later. And so I think that sometimes you can't avoid this. For instance, my name is Sean Cannell, and nobody knows how to spell Cannell, and nobody knows how to say Cannell. And so it is kind of hard to communicate. So even if I'm on a podcast and I'm being interviewed, I will actually say, you know, you can follow me on Twitter at Sean Cannell. That's SeanCannell. I'll actually spell it out because I'm thinking about that. So that's kind of a strategy as well. You can't ultimately change your name if it is kind of confusing, but never forget that, like, you can't just assume people know how to spell your name. And sometimes even when you're typing in an Instagram, you're like, what was it again? What were the first few letters? So always be thinking about how can you make things as simple, as clear, as memorable, as easily communicatable. If you're going to be on Facebook Live or YouTube Live and you say something verbally, can it be remembered? And is it going to be complex to spell, especially when picking out YouTube names, domains, URLs? Keep it simple and make it very, very easy to spell. And one way around this is kind of cool is Gary Vaynerchuk. Try to spell Vaynerchuk, right? He on social media actually is Gary V-E-E. So he shortened his name, Gary V, and he then will say that. So you can follow me everywhere like Gary V-E-E. He spells it out, right? So that's kind of a hack to be thinking from the beginning, how can I make this very shareable and memorable and simple for years to come? And then lastly, one of the big mistakes that I see people making online is having an inconsistent name across the internet. And so what I mean is maybe their YouTube channel is named one thing, and then their Twitter is different, and their Facebook is different. I don't even just mean the URL, I just mean their actual branding. And so be thinking about not just coming out with a solid name that hopefully includes your topic and has a strong message to it, it's memorable, it's simple, but then also be thinking about then making sure that that messaging is consistent across all of your channels. So even if you already have a name, that might be some good spring cleaning, if you will, to really think, is my name, my brand messaging consistent across all platforms online? Question of the day, what are your tips for coming up with a cool and memorable name for YouTube or just for your brand online? Post those in the comment section below. And remember that some of the best tips and feedback come from you, the Think Media TV community. So definitely connect with everybody in the comment section. So thanks so much for checking out this video. Hit the like button if you thought it was valuable. And once you pick out your YouTube name, the next step is to figure out how to get views, subscribers, and how to really build your influence online. So if you actually want to check out a free training I did, I'll link it up on the screen here as well as in the description below. Until next time, Think Media TV is bringing you the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. Keep crushing it, and we will talk soon.
Welcome. Tutorial on how to film, edit, and upload a YouTube video from scratch, step by step. Buckle your seatbelts and get ready, because maybe you want to grab a journal to write something. If you're shooting videos on your phone, or if you got your gear with you, gather it up, grab something to drink, because in this video, I am going to be walking you through how to prepare your gear and do your camera settings and shoot a YouTube video that gets views. We're going to talk about thumbnails and doing thumbnail photography and how to edit your thumbnails, how to step-by-step edit your videos, and then upload them on YouTube in the most comprehensive free tutorial on how to create YouTube content online, period. And in between each part of this 4-part mega video, I'm going to be answering the top questions from the Think Media community about each of these topics. But if we're just meeting, my name is Sean Cannell. I'm the author of YouTube Secrets, and my passion is helping purpose-driven people build their influence with online video. But now it's time to start with part 1 of setting up our gear and filming our YouTube video. So buckle your seatbelts and let's just jump into it. When you're getting started in video, it can be frustrating because there's a lot to learn when it comes to the camera settings and what gear do you need. So in this video, I'm going to be going through step by step how to create a YouTube video with the gear that I'm using, the exact settings on this Canon M50, but it'll be relevant for any kind of DSLR or mirrorless camera that you're using. And then ultimately how to edit and put it all together coming up. Hey, what's up? Sean Cannell here, and this is Think Media, bringing you the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. And on this channel, we do a lot of tech gear reviews as well as strategy videos on how to build your influence with social media. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. But hey, we're starting a 4-part series where we're going to be going through how to shoot a great YouTube video with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera like the Canon M50 or the SL2. We're going to be talking about how to shoot thumbnails and go from shooting the photos to editing them, then how to edit the video, and then also upload it. So we're going to take you concept to completion of creating YouTube content. So let's just dive into it right now with the gear we're going to use to create this video. So for the first part, let's get started with the exact gear we're using. And actually, we just put together a brand new guide that you can grab at thinkgearguide.com, where we'll list out everything. I'll link to that in the description. But our main camera for this shoot is the Canon M50. And the reason I love this camera is because at around $600 with the kit lens, it's really the best all-around camera for YouTube, in my opinion, still. I mean, with the flip screen and the mic input, we'll talk about some of those things. But in the gear guide, we cover all types of different cameras for different budgets. So definitely check that out. But for the gear we're using, we've got the camera. The main lens I'm going to be using for the video I'm creating for my other channel, Sean Thinks, is the 11 to 22 lens because it's wide, really good for small and tight shots to get a really wide shot and good for vlogging. Using a Taskar shotgun mic right on top here. A little bit later in the shoot, we'll use this Boya mic. And then I also have the kit lens. We're not really going to be using that today, but we are going to be using our 22mm pancake lens a little bit later on for a nice crispy shot with a blurry background. And then finally, I've got a KNF concept tripod here that I'm going to be using because I'm going to be creating this video as a solo creator, like many of us are in the Think community, right? And so this is the full kit. I've got an SD card in there, and all together, you could pick all this up for a little bit under $1,000. You don't need all of this to get started, but these are sort of like the ultimate kit, I think, to create some killer YouTube videos. So we're going to start in just a second, but now let's talk about the settings before we start shooting. All right, now go ahead and grab your camera, no matter what camera you have to follow along, but if you've got your M50, grab it. And normally when you get started shooting video, you probably pick video mode on the top of the camera, and that's a great way to start. When you do that, you can actually go into that video mode and you can put it on auto exposure. If you want the fastest way to get your camera set up and running, auto exposure is going to be auto everything. It might not look the best in some motion in some situations, but it's really nice. Now you could also do manual, and we love manual. And if you want every single detail to be adjusted, that's a great option too. But we've kind of figured out a hybrid mode for a simple way to do auto, and we'll show you what that is. So we're actually going to start with TV on the top, which is shutter priority. And you can look that up for your camera. When it's in shutter priority, that allows us to prioritize what will make the video look the best. So let's talk about it. In shutter priority, what we're going to do is hit the Q, and we'll go through our settings. Now, first of all, we're going to do auto white balance, just so it's quick and fast. We're going to do auto picture style, just so the colors look nice. If we were going to color grade later, I would shoot on neutral, but because we want this to be a quick edit and export, drop it on YouTube, we just going to have auto white balance, auto on that picture profile. And then I'm going to choose an autofocus mode of my face, at least initially, when I'm vlogging and I'm on camera. I'm going to be shooting a video for my Sean Cannell channel of a home office tour. And so when I'm on camera, I'll do the face focus. And then when I'm shooting room shots, I can do kind of zone focus and tap certain areas. But then the biggest thing here now is our frame rate. And so if you want 24 frames a second, which is kind of a film look, you could choose that. If you want more slow motion or faster, if you're doing sports or something, you can do 60 frames. But typically I shoot at 29.97 or 30 frames a second. Now, once you pick your frame rate, and so pick 29 frames a second, 1080p is perfect, is then your shutter follows the 180-degree rule, which means if you're shooting 30 frames a second, you want your shutter speed at 60. If you were shooting 24 frames a second, you want your shutter speed at 50. Again, it's double whatever your frame rate is. And so the cool thing about shutter priority is it's going to always keep our shutter at 60. Therefore, the motion will always look good in the video. And then finally, we're going to go over to ISO here and actually put it on auto. So that way, the camera will adjust the lighting brighter or darker accordingly. Now, the final thing to note here is that this lens is, we're picking it because we're shooting these wide room shots and it's really good for vlogging. It's the 11-22 Canon lens, but because the aperture is f4, it's a little bit dark. So the ISO might go up a little bit high, but we're just gonna live with that. I mean, it is what it is, and ISO is where we're gonna get that lighting. And here's what I mean, is that if you want your video quality to look the best, you probably don't wanna go over ISO 400 or 800 on this camera. If you want to just kind of vlog and take people with you and you don't have extra lighting, well, then it might go higher and it's just going to affect the image quality. One thing to remember about ISO is that lower is going to be not as much light being let in, but it's going to be a better image quality. If you can get enough light or you can shoot outdoors. The higher you go, the more grainy the image is and the more it falls apart. So sometimes you need to go higher to get the light, but keeping it as low as possible will keep your image quality as high as possible. And with that, we're ready to shoot. Okay, so I'm about to get started doing my home office tour shoot here, but let's talk about the mic settings last. Now, because I'm gonna be vlogging like this shotgun mic is perfect. It's a $25 shotgun mic, and here's one setting that I love on it, is it has a plus 10 dB. Now, some mics have plus 20, but a lot of times that's too much and it'll make the audio too loud, but plus 10 is perfect. So I actually have the mic on. I've got just the high pass filter, just at normal, just normal. And then I've got the plus 10 dB, so it's cool. And so then I just go into the menu, head over to 8 here on the camera settings, then we can go to sound recording, and we make sure the sound recording is on manual. Here's the thing, if it's on auto, it has this kind of AGC, auto gain control, which brings in a lot of noise and even hiss sometimes because it's searching for voices. So when it's on manual, it means the audio is locked. And so what's nice here is I can then take this setting right here and just get the gain perfect for my voice. And so if I'm right in front of the camera, I want it to be never hitting red and only really hitting that kind of 12 dB. That's our target. So if I'm in yellow, I'm in front of the camera, I go, okay, that's nice and clean. If I get a little bit further, and so that is gonna be really crispy audio settings. Our shotgun mic set up, our audio levels are ready, all of our camera settings are ready, so I'm ready to shoot my video. So a couple reasons why I love this setup is, of course, the flip screen, so I can always get a good shot composition of myself on camera. I love the wide angle lens, especially for like a room tour video because it gets very wide shots. But then I also love this Joby tripod because I can not just vlog with it and take people with me, but then I can quickly set it down and get a nice shot like this. So throughout this video, I'm gonna be moving from room to room, and this is a very versatile setup for all that content. If you're looking for some home office design ideas, you're gonna love this video. My name is Sean Cannell, and I've been a full-time entrepreneur for over 4 years now, freelancing well before that, and working from a home office. So in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down some of my favorite design and inspirational images and various posters and things like that, as well as my charging stations and a couple other cool features that I think will give you some great ideas for your home office. Coming up. Now, after shooting a lot of scenes in vlog mode, I'm actually going to be getting behind the camera now. And so a quick tip is you can just flip your shotgun mic, so that'll keep the audio obviously going the right direction and clean and crispy. And then I also like to actually use the Joby like this, where I tighten it down and I get an added point of contact. So now the camera can actually be a very steady shot if I want to walk people through the home office, give kind of a tour. I can zoom in. And the one other thing I'm going to do here is switch the focus mode from face focus to zone focus. So now I can just tap on exactly what I want to be in focus, and it's not going to be hunting for faces and potentially having focus issues. But over here, that's also an IKEA bookshelf. And so you can see, I think that lifelong leaders are lifelong learners. I read a lot of books. I love to always be leveling up and working on myself. All right, so let's talk about a quick tip to help you organize your footage when you're creating YouTube videos. So I've been shooting this home office tour. I shot it in here, in the loft, in the other office. I shot behind the camera, in front of the camera. But what I'm considering all of that is a term to remember. It's called A-roll. In editing, it's going to be the base layer of video footage. And the A-roll is typically the person on camera. It's where my audio is, where the main kind of narration is, etc. And then you've probably heard the term B-roll. The reason it's called B-roll is then it's any extra clips that we would layer on top of the A-roll. So maybe while I'm sitting at a chair describing something, I can lay over a clip of the thing I'm describing. And so for the next part of the shoot, now that I've basically finished shooting the A-roll, I actually want to switch lenses. And so the reason I mentioned all the gear at the beginning was so that we can use a different lens, and that is the Pancake 22mm f2. Now there's a couple reasons to do this, but one of the main reasons is the aperture. And what I mean is that f2. This guy is f4. This one is f2. That is a big difference. What a faster aperture, and faster is the lower number, what an f2 aperture will do for you is allow the image to be better in lower light. It basically is a wider aperture. It lets more light into the camera. And so in these darker scenes, like when I'm filming over here on f4, and remember our auto ISO settings, there's actually not a ton of light in these corners. This lens will make that look beautiful and be able to do better in lower light situations. This lens, not as much. And then the other thing that f2 is going to do for us is it's going to give us a shallow depth of field and a blurry background. And so actually, before I finish out this video shooting some B-roll, what I'm going to do is put the camera on this tripod, and that's what I'm going to use this for. I'm going to use this tripod to get some smooth panning shots of the room. Again, this is a room tour, kind of home office tour. And so what I can do on here is this K&F tripod has nice smooth panning. I'm going to get some smooth panning shots, and I'm going to get a shot where I mount the camera on here. I'm much further away, and then that's what we're going to use this Boya mic for. This mic is around $20. It's a lavalier like the mic that we're recording this Think Media video on. And so that way, if I get further away, I can get that blurry background. I can get the good audio, because if I'm too far away from my shotgun mic, the audio is not going to be as good. So thanks for coming along with me for a quick tour through the Think Media offices. If you want to see any of the various decor, now, could you skip past these other lenses and even this mic and still finish out this video? Of course. But I just kind of wanted to give you the complete kit that I would use so that I feel ready to create all the content necessary to tell a great story on YouTube. All right, and so I just finished up shooting all of the B-roll clips that I wanted to shoot. Of course, I shot all the A-roll, and so that pretty much covers it. We have the gear, right, the settings. We went and shot all of our clips, but there's one thing we need to do before we get to editing, and that is create the thumbnail. One of the biggest things people miss on YouTube is being like, oh, shoot, I'm just going to pull a clip out of the video for the thumbnail. I recommend actually shooting specific thumbnail photography, and then I've got some tips in Photoshop for editing your thumbnail. So that's part 2 of this video. If you want to watch that, click or tap the YouTube card, or we'll link to the entire series in the description below. In part 3, I'm going to go through how I edit this video. And then in part 4, we'll talk about the best export settings and actually getting it uploaded onto YouTube. So check out the whole series. And remember, you can actually download a complete gear guide with other tutorials, tips, for smartphone accessories, not just the Canon M50, but all kinds of different cameras we recommend here at Think Media. Grab that for free at thinkgearguide.com. Now, let's jump into some questions from part 1 in the series from the Think Media community. So Sarah asks, what are some shortcuts to make the filming process quicker and more efficient? I think there's a couple tips that I have, and the first one is outline your videos. You know, prior planning prevents poor performance. Like the more you plan out your content ahead of time, the better it goes when you're filming it. I think also just having a checklist for your process. And throughout this entire mega video, there's going to be a mega list of videos and resources in the description below. One of the top videos I have is on my YouTube checklist, where I talk about batching. I try to shoot more than one video at once. I try to shoot 2, 3, 4 in a day. And so I have a couple shirt changes. I've outlined all those videos. I make sure the batteries are charged, all those kinds of tips. And so if you want to learn more about that, Sarah, check out that checklist video in the resource guide. And thanks so much for the question. Dave asks, do I really need 4K or am I okay with 1080p? Because my PC struggles a lot editing 4K clips. Well, two thoughts, Dave. The first one is I think 1080p is still fine. I mean, we're shooting this video in 1080p. Secondly, new information has come out that going into 2020, here in America, over 50% of homes now have a 4K TV in their home. You know, most of our smartphones have 4K resolution, even though they're a smaller screen. And so 4K is becoming more mainstream. Do I think you need it? No. I agree with you as well. It's harder to edit. It takes up more space on your computer. It can be a hassle. But if you really want to future-proof, then it may be something you either want to invest in now or at least start thinking about and steering your content and your strategy towards for the future. James asks, can you do a little more on the custom settings for the M50? My first efforts with it were horrible. Well, James, first of all, no matter what camera you're shooting with, if you're watching this video, you got to give yourself patience. Your first videos, they're going to be your worst videos. And yes, we actually have a video where Omar on the Think Media team broke down some deeper custom settings for the M50. So we'll put that in the resource guide. M-Tech Accessories asks, are you using a Takstar microphone? Yes, for the M50 setup and the shotgun microphone that I talk about in the video we just watched, it is a Takstar, great microphone that won't break the bank. Kath asks, how do you let your voice get heard on this overpopulated platform called YouTube? Great question, and not really the topic of this video, but what I'd recommend is our free YouTube masterclass. It's actually at thinkmasterclass.com, and I actually have a little spot that you can watch about it right now.
Are you ready to start or grow your YouTube channel? Do you feel stuck and need help connecting the dots? Join this free web class where you'll learn the step-by-step playbook for YouTube success. We've helped thousands of purpose-driven entrepreneurs just like you grow their influence with video. Register today for this exclusive training at thinkmasterclass.com.
Next question, Mike asks, when creating tutorials, is it best to shoot a short intro on what you're going to be doing in the video, or should you just get straight to the tutorial? Would it be beneficial to upload two versions, one with an intro and one without? So I would recommend actually these days here on Think Media, we're trying to get to the point quicker. You know, attention spans are getting shorter and shorter on YouTube. So if you do just dive straight into it, it's a lot of time what people are looking for. Maybe they know the title and the thumbnail has described the content, so you can just get into it quickly. However, it is also good to give some sort of an intro, set the context of the video, and eventually you might want to introduce yourself. So my tips here, Mike, is to experiment, number one, get to the point as quick as possible, whatever that means for you, and don't upload two versions. I think that would just kind of be weird for your subscribers to have the same video, two different versions. What I would do is test different styles of videos, see which one performs best, and then double down on what's working. Jerome asks, is it necessary to always upgrade to a professional camera when making YouTube videos, or is there no problem from recording from your mobile device? I find it a lot easier and less time-consuming editing from your mobile phone. Well, Jerome, it's a great point that you make here, and I have two thoughts. The first one is the best camera to start with is always the camera that you already have, which is probably your smartphone. And I know we're talking about the Canon M50 in this mega video, but a smartphone is a great way to get started. In fact, we have a 4-part series here on Think Media where Heather breaks down how to shoot, edit, and upload just with your phone. So we'll make sure to link that up in the resource guide. From my perspective, one of the reasons why I like using a separate camera is, number one, I don't like filling my phone with data. I mean, I already take too many pictures and videos and Instagram stories as it is. So I like capturing to an SD card and keeping it clean so I can shoot the footage, capture it in a laptop or a computer, have editing be quick, and keep the content separate than the content that's on my phone. Number two, if I'm gonna vlog it all, the front-facing camera on our phones is typically not as good as the forward-facing camera. Like, especially like on the newer iPhones or whatever, these cameras are amazing. The selfie camera is okay, but in video mode, it's not the best. Still perfectly fine for YouTube, but there's just something powerful about, I think, a separate camera that can get you good quality, that has a nice selfie screen. You can capture it on an SD card and have a separate workflow, and then have your phone be a separate part of that content process. But here's the deal. always start with the camera that you have, and in no way think that your camera is going to limit you from success on YouTube. In fact, the rest of this video is still going to help you shoot thumbnails and edit, and you can do all of that just editing with the content that a smartphone or an iPad or something like that creates. So the best camera to have is always the camera you do have. Punch fear in the face and get started. Don asks, I'm curious whether the cameras you recommended have clean HDMI outputs. Now, for context, this is in case you would want to use a Canon M50 or an SL2, a 90D, a Sony camera for live streaming. You want to use the HDMI port to plug it into your computer and live stream to YouTube or Twitch. So it's a great question. I bought an SL2 before I even knew what a clean HDMI output was. I knew I wanted to expand into streaming, but I just didn't have all the information I needed. So I just ordered an SL3 for that feature. I'm going to be streaming at an event on Wednesday as a test drive of my setup. I love the question, John. Here's my best recommendation. There is a really cool device called the CamLink by Elgato, and there's a CamLink 4K by Elgato. It's a little device that plugs right into your USB port and then allows you to plug in an HDMI cable to capture a camera like the SL2, A6400, Sony, Panasonic, whatever brand, into that HDMI input. The reason you want a clean HDMI output, because if it's not clean, then maybe on the screen when you're live streaming, it'd say like 999 photos, it'd show you the battery meter, it'd show you like brackets, it wouldn't be a clean image. And there's a few other issues that come up as well. Does it have unlimited record time, or can the power stay on continuously? Because if you're live streaming off of a camera to your computer and the battery dies in the middle and you can't like plug it into a wall or get an external battery or anything like that, again, the camera's not going to be ideal for live streaming. So if that's one of the priorities for you, go to the CamLink website. I'll link exactly to the page in the resource guide of the CamLink recommended cameras with clean HDMI outputs. And then you can predetermine if your camera will be ideal for streaming. For example, the M50 works, but it actually has some issues if you don't use third-party software. So if live streaming is a priority for you, definitely check out that page first before you invest in a camera. Martin asks, aloha from Honolulu, Hawaii. I got a question. I'm still debating on what camera I should get for vlogging, the M50 or the A6400. What is the best microphone solution for the Sony A6400? Thank you very much. Appreciate the question, Martin. I still think that in 2020 and beyond, those are still two of the top cameras on the market. The M50, for definitely more budget, you can get these things refurbished off the Canon website for around $470 now. It's pretty crazy. That comes with a 1-year warranty. And then the A6400 is just going to be a bigger investment. I think now the A6100 by Sony is a more accurate comparison feature for feature to the M50. And even that's a little bit more expensive. It basically comes down to this, Martin. When you invest in Sony, you're going to pay more for the lenses if you get that wide vlogging lens. You're going to pay more for the body when you're investing in that, but you're also going to get 4K and be a little bit more future-proof. I think the M50 is still great. That's why it's the main camera this series is based on. And so definitely check out the resource guide, and we'll link to our main comparison of those two cameras. The decision's up to you. Here's the thing. In both cases, you're going to probably have everything that you want. Unless, of course, you really want to go deep in 4K, then it's definitely going to be Sony that I'd recommend. Okay, we're going to be answering some more questions in just a second after part 2 in the series, which is all about thumbnails. But if you're getting value so far, smash the like button. And now, in this next section of the mega video, we're going to talk all about shooting thumbnails from a photography standpoint and then editing them step by step in Adobe Photoshop. So let's just jump right into it. When it comes to getting views and growing your YouTube channel, thumbnails are a huge deal. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing a few tips from my thumbnail process. So we're going to be covering the actual photography of shooting the thumbnails. Now we're going to take them over to Photoshop and just go through some basics about making your thumbnails pop more so people click on them so you can get more views on your videos. All that's coming up right now. Hey, what's up? Sean Cannell here with Think Media, bringing you the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. And we're actually in a 4-part series all about how to produce YouTube videos that get more views. In part 1, we covered how to shoot a YouTube video. And I just finished up shooting with the Canon M50 here, a tutorial that if you missed that and you want to watch it, I'll link to it on the YouTube card and put a link to it in the description below. And really, it's something you can follow along with any DSLR or mirrorless camera. But before we get to editing, which will be part 3, we need to create our thumbnail. And the reason we have a dedicated video just for thumbnails is because it's that big of a deal. Now, one of the biggest mistakes people make, I think, is they forget to actually shoot intentional thumbnails. Have you ever done that before? Let me know in the comments. You like finish up editing and then you go, oh shoot, what should the thumbnail be? And you look for a screenshot. I recommend shooting intentional photos that you think about, what are my emotions on my face? What am I doing in the image? What would people want to click on? And so let's just dive into it right now. All right, now I should mention that if you want to watch the final video from this tutorial series, it's over on my Sean channel. And what it's all about is a home office walkthrough with some home office decor ideas. And so what I want in the thumbnail is some way to show that off. And so what is cool about if you're shooting thumbnails by yourself, I recommend having a tripod and using the camera timer. And maybe you put yourself in front of like a simple background or whatnot and start the timer. You could also use the app. So if you use your phone, you can fire off photos from your camera in case you're creating as a solo creator and you need to go shoot your own thumbnails. In this case, I'm going to put this in kind of a selfie mode. So I've got my Joby 3K on here, and we are actually going to set this in aperture priority, which is going to focus on the aperture. That's going to be at as low as it can go, f4, because the 10-22 lens, that's as low as it can go. And then on top of that, we're just going to pretty much do ISO auto because that'll get the lighting perfect. And I'm going to go to the queue here, go to the timer, and just put it on the selfie timer, 2 seconds. 10 would be fine, but it has a long time to wait. So it's nice that the M50 has this 2-second timer. And then I'm going to, with the flip screen here, be able to compose the shot. And so as it is a home office tour, I'm going to be thinking about where am I looking? I want to make sure I'm looking at the lens, not the selfie screen. Or maybe I want to look to the left or the right. So when it comes to thumbnails, one of the biggest things I think about is emotion. A couple tips on thumbnails. Usually people in the thumbnails is stronger. YouTube tests have shown that if you see people's eyes, you see emotions on their face, it can really pull you in. Now, that gets exaggerated, and we've all seen those really bright thumbnails with crazy faces, but I think there's something to it. So always include your own style. So my goal here would be to think about where am I in the shot, and think about kind of the background of the office here. And then all I got to do to start firing off some photos is do that 2-second timer. It's got the crispy photo on there. Now, another tip here is shoot multiple photos. For big videos that are very important to us, sometimes we even shoot photos in different places. Like maybe I want to shoot one out there or here. I think this is going to be perfect for this particular scene. Additionally, if you want to keep things simple, just having your camera set to a JPEG image, which is your most basic type of image, is fine. And basically, you're going to be able to use the photo right out of the camera. Sure, you can make some edits to it. But because I've got the Adobe Creative Cloud, which I highly recommend as you evolve in your journey, I use Lightroom, Photoshop, Adobe Audition for audio, and Adobe Premiere for video editing, and then After Effects if needed for motion graphics, but I usually don't take it that far. And so all of that comes in the Adobe Creative Cloud. If you actually want to do a trial, I'll throw a link to it in the description below. You can, I think, try it out free for a few days. And what's cool about that, though, is I want to make sure I shoot in RAW. And that way, if the image is too dark or I want to change the white balance, it just gives me a lot more flexibility later. So that's another setting I have it on. I'm actually shooting large JPEGs, and I'm shooting RAW as well. So it says that's the large JPEG right there. And then you've also got RAW. This new one is actually a Canon Creative RAW. That'd be good too if you've got your Lightroom or your Photoshop updated. Again, to keep it simple, don't even worry about this. But if you want the best, quality possible, I've got it to RAW. So now let me shoot a couple different versions. I'd like to probably shoot 6 to 12 photos because you can always delete them. But once you're sitting down later to edit and you're like, it's dark out and the light's all gone, and you're like, crap, I don't really have any good options. I've never regretted overshooting. So let's get a couple more right now. All right, nice clean light. I like it with the eyes looking over. I can always crop the image last thing I'm going to do here as we get towards our, we're shooting about 12 different photos, is I want to actually really go rule of thirds. And so when I think about shot composition, there's all these nice posters over here. Over here is the chair and some other clutter. So what I'm going to do is get my focus right and then kind of shift the shot so it shows off the office. So basically I'm framing myself up behind all this stuff I don't want to see. I love the camera lenses over there. I always like to put myself as close to the edge of the thumbnail as possible, really thinking about the framing. And again, I don't mind having options. So here we go. Let's just do one final one. Okay, so we shot our thumbnails on the M50. So now let's pop the SD card out and capture those files. Okay, now that our files are captured, let's look through our options and then we'll pull them into Photoshop. And so here's the full shoot. I can open these up and then kind of click through. That one's a little bit out of focus, and that's why it's nice to shoot multiple, right? You have different options that you can go through to look for the one that you ultimately want to use. I really like this one. I kind of would crop it right through here, so maybe we'll go with that, but let's look through these other ones. And remember, by having lots of thumbnail options, you can potentially get like that perfect emotion or facial expression that you want. I really like the eyes looking because it directs attention to maybe some words that we can put on here. So let's go with this one. It's 8828. This raw file, drag this over here to Photoshop. And perfect. Loving this photo. And now I've got camera raw settings, which again, when you shoot in raw, you're going to be able to have more kind of micro adjustments to maybe, I actually kind of want the background to be a little bit darker because it's all about emphasizing, me for a thumbnail. The face really matters. Eyes matter. You can include the eyes, have those. There's just been studies done that have shown that eyes and human faces perform really well in thumbnails. So this photo is looking pretty great right as is. And of course, we can do a lot of adjustments and things to it, but I think we're pretty good to go with it the way it is. So what I'm going to do is actually press Control-J. I'm using a PC that duplicates the layer. And so that I can change our canvas size. And this is going to allow me to go to the exact thumbnail size of a 1080 thumbnail. And so 1920 by 1080 is the resolution. If I click over here, I'm going to hold Shift to maintain the resolution while I do this, or maintain the image doesn't get stretched weird. Control+ to zoom in. And this gives me the ability to sort of adjust the image inside of the frame that will go on YouTube. And kind of got those cameras behind me. I don't know if anyone would notice what those are. So those lenses might be unnecessary. The main thing people are going to maybe see is this kind of cool light. And all right, so we've got that. And next thing I want to do is add some text here. Now, the title of this video, I like planning ahead. If you can research before you press record, is going to be 10 cool home office design ideas. But one mistake people make is trying to include every single word in their title and their thumbnail. You don't need all of them, but sometimes it's nice to put some words in your thumbnail. So I'm using the text tool, and I'm going to go with one of my favorite fonts, which is Helvetica New, and then there's lots of niche fonts inside of there. So I'm going to go Helvetica New Black Italic. That's one of my favorites. Perfect. Okay. So do that. Change that over to white. Got my toolbar here. Let's zoom in on our Photoshop. All right. Cool. And one of my favorite things is just keeping it really simple and readable. So I'm going to drag a little rectangle box. Now, Photoshop works by layers. In the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you can see that there are layers. So cool is above this little box now. And I think what we'll go for is if I go cool, I can stretch this up. I can make this larger, really easy. I'm always holding Shift to preserve the, to make sure that everything doesn't get stretched weird. One of the big mistakes people can make is skewing their image, like stretching a face wrong or something can look really, really ugly. So we're gonna go cool and put this kind of above, because the way the image is looking, I'm gonna fit sort of my text right up here. Now I'm gonna press Control-J, that duplicates the layer. So I was selected the layer cool over here, now it's cool copy, And so I can change the word to office. So we'll go office, stretch this out. Cool. Office. Now for some contrast, I'm going to make office black. And so it stands out a little bit more. Between the cool. Put my control bracket left or right to make the layer go higher or lower. The other way you could do that is you can just drag layers over here above and below your word. So there's the office word, there's the white rectangle below it. I can tilt that, grabbing the edge of it, rotate it a little, shrink down my the box around it. Perfect, cool office. And then finally, we'll go ideas. So same thing, right? The full video title in this case is going to be 10 home office design ideas, but you don't need to repeat every single word. So it's just, what is the main thing people are looking for? They're looking for home office stuff. Duplicated my white box. I'm going to switch it back to black now. I think I did that actually only twice, so we'll delete one of those layers. Control bracket to lower that layer down. Delete one of those extra rectangles. Perfect. So now ideas is got some emphasis, and you know, your style, I encourage you, of course, to always have your own style, and not that my style is right or wrong, but one priority that I have is clarity. Like I really believe online that if you confuse, you lose. And so I want, I like simple fonts. I like readable fonts. Sometimes if things get kind of more too cursive, too Comic Sans, they're just hard to read. And so I like clarity over being clever or being kind of even cool, right? So we're nice and simple, right? So we've got cool home office ideas. I still got my layer here. If I want to move me a little bit over here, whatever, I'm looking right at the ideas. And beyond that, we're pretty much done, but there's a few things that I also like to do. I do realize that, think about your thumbnail when it's online, sometimes the title is over top, so if you can move text away from the edges, that helps. Also avoid putting text in the lower right-hand corner, because that's where the time code is on YouTube, right? Just thinking through those best practices. My final thing that I like to do, I'm going to put a layer right above my photo, and it's going to be levels. And levels gives me 3 sliders over here on the right that will really see I can make the image brighter. And I can also pull it from this side and make it much more contrasty and make it kind of darker. So what I like to do is really get the thumbnail to pop. Something with, when it comes to thumbnails that people have studied is that you usually want to go a little bit of extra saturation. I can do another adjustment layer for that. I could go vibrance on here, and I could add a little bit more vibrance. It's going to make it a little extra, maybe more than you would normally do if you wanted your skin tone to be more matte and natural. But again, a thumbnail is so small, you want it to pop. So that's a little bit of extra vibrance and saturation. The levels, you kind of pull it up a little brighter. But if we want the background to be a little bit darker, kind of. And we're pretty much there. Sometimes this is a little bit more advanced. This is kind of just a beginner's thumbnail tutorial, and I encourage you, check out some training links in the description below if you want to go deep in Photoshop and really master it. But one of the things I like to do, I'm going to add a blank layer here, and I'm going to use the gradient tool, make sure my gradient's on black, and so it is. And so if I drag from here, I can do a gradient just like that. That makes it, and I'm deleting it just to kind of, and then I can use opacity here to come down and just sort of even darken that edge, so maybe this stuff pops more. Cool home office ideas. But at some point you could endlessly tweak, right, the details of something like this. So I think that really we're good to go, and that this should be a super solid thumbnail. So now our final step here is to just go File, Save As, and our final format. What I like to do is I keep everything organized on Dropbox by month, and that way we can I can get to it easy from my phone and whatever else. But what I really like to do is save the PSD, so I can always reopen it and edit it later if I need to. So I might title it, 10 cool home office ideas. And then I save that Photoshop file in case I want to open it later to reuse it. And then I'm going to say save as JPEG, and that is the exact file that we will upload later to YouTube as our thumbnail. Okay, so a few other things you need to know about thumbnails. And the first is, again, if you want to use Photoshop, I understand this was not like a super exhaustive tutorial on Photoshop. There are free ones of those on YouTube, or you can check out a site like Lynda. So I definitely recommend skilling up if you want to use Photoshop, but I think that some of the concepts can be applied here. Also, we'll be covering more thumbnail tutorials in the future here on Think Media, because we shoot them definitely outdoors, different variety, whether you're shooting by yourself or you have someone helping you. So look forward to those videos in the future and make sure you're subscribed. Also, if you've been getting value out of this video, can you smash the like button? And here's what is next. The next video is now about editing. In part 1, we shot all the footage with the M50. In part 2, this video, it's all about getting the right photography and editing up your thumbnail. But then in part 3, I'm now going to edit the footage that I shot into our final video. This is all going into a video that you can watch on my Sean Cannell channel, so you can see the final product. So I'll link to that on the YouTube card and put it in the description below. And then of course in part 4, we're going to be talking about exporting it with the best settings for YouTube, helping walk you through concept to completion for creating content with whatever camera you have, but especially if you have the M50. Okay, hey, if you're still in the mega video, let me know in the comments section below. We just finished up part 2, all about thumbnails, and now I want to take the top questions from the Think Media community. And the first one comes from Zachary asking, I'm not sure that mine do the best job captivating. My question is, how can I figure that out if I think that they're good? And you're right, Zachary. Sometimes we need to get feedback when it comes to our thumbnails. And so a couple tips. I actually like to design at least 2 thumbnails for each video, if possible, like 2 options, and then share those on social media. So a lot of times I'll post on Twitter thumbnail 1 or 2, and if you're followed by 10 people or 100 people, or maybe you have more people on Instagram, just ask people which one they would click on first or which one stands out better, and that can help you narrow down what people would actually click on. Because when we're just creating content by ourselves, it's hard to get feedback. My friend Jeremy also has a thumbnail Facebook group, and every week he says, hey, post your thumbnails where people can give each other feedback on thumbnails. So I'll make sure all of this stuff is in the resource guide that I put in the description below. And other than that, I think keep testing and try to get as much feedback as possible from your audience. The last tip is it's all about click-through rate. At the end of the day, YouTube in your studio beta analytics will actually show you the click-through rate of your videos. Now, a lot of things actually go into determining that, from the title to the topic itself, but thumbnail is a big determining factor of whether or not your videos are going to get clicked on. So make sure to study your analytics, and of course, subscribe here on Think Media for more tips about growing your YouTube channel in the future. Tim asks, what size should it be? I make all my thumbnails in 1920 by 1080 resolution. That's a standard 1080p resolution. I do that for a couple reasons. Last time I checked, it's what YouTube recommends. If you want to be future-proofed, you could design your thumbnails in 4K, but there is a size limit on the file size where YouTube will reject your thumbnails. So 1080p seems to be good. And I also don't like to do smaller than that. A lot of people will do like a 720 resolution, but I want to be as future-proof as possible and use those same files to share on Twitter, to share on Facebook, to keep archived on my computer so I can use them later and have them in their highest quality possible. So 1920 by 1080 resolution. Daniel asks, how do you determine the right style and thumbnail for your videos and channel? It's a great question. I think a couple of things come into play. Number one, what is your preferred branding? You know what I mean? Like if you think about it, a lot of times people just copy other people on YouTube and they're just influenced by their style. But if you want to be different, like do you want your branding to be clean and modern? Do you want it to be chic and stand out? Do you want it to be very hip and cool? Or do you want it to be cartoony and kind of, gamerish and futuristic? Think about your branding, not just for your thumbnails, but for your channel overall. Secondly, if you do want to kind of ride the trends, ask yourself, what are other people doing in your industry that are winning? Like, what are the top ranked videos? What do their thumbnails look like? If you're in fitness, what do the top ranked thumbnails look like for fitness? If you're in cooking, what do the top ranked thumbnails look like when you search certain search terms and you get ideas from the videos that are performing well? You can take a few clues that maybe your thumbnails should be similar to those videos. However, it's sometimes smart to do something different than what everybody else is doing so that you stand out. And then the last tip is just to test. You know what I mean? I think it's a combination of testing what your branding is mixed with what's working and what's getting the best click-through rate. You know, here at Think Media, we've been evolving our thumbnails a little bit. We're doing less text lately. We're doing more cameras and less people in the thumbnails, but we're testing. You know, I can't even say that that's better than the past. We don't have all the data yet, but I think keep it fresh, always try something new, and don't forget to test and double down on what's working. My man Jaden asks, how do you add colors around your face? How do you add cool colors when you make thumbnails around camera tips? Just generally, how do you make your thumbnails have color, it sounds like? Well, besides the tutorial that I just shared, which was kind of a 101 basic going through Photoshop type of a tutorial, I have another video that's a little bit older, but it actually talks about how to use free software on canva.com. And there's a paid version too, but I'm pretty sure you can do at least a trial or use limited features in the free version. I'll link that video in the resource guide. And it's hard to explain in a Q&A like this. I think there, in some of our advanced trainings that we have in our members areas and whatnot, I do have some deeper dives of how exactly I make the thumbnails of video influencers and Think Media. I still do all of that thumbnail design myself. And so my biggest tip, if you want to go into that kind of stuff, would be to learn Photoshop at another level. I think it's the most powerful software, and you could use something like LinkedIn Learning. You can watch free YouTube videos about it. You can look at other Photoshop tutorials or a mini course on Photoshop, Skillshare, and I'll put some resources in the resource guide of things like that. If you go through a couple, you know, take a weekend or take a couple weekends to really go deep in Skillshare or LinkedIn Learning on Photoshop, and then you're going to have the skills needed to not just design powerful thumbnails, but to also design powerful graphics for your business overall. As content creators, come on, we need to be doing social media, graphics for our email newsletters, maybe graphics for our websites. And some of you as business owners are going to hire that out, but some of you, that's a skill that you're going to want to learn. So either invest in the training to learn it. If you want to go deeper in some of our stuff, of course, we'll have information in the resource guide. And other than that, check out that free Canva tutorial, because remember, done is better than perfect. So keep it simple and get your thumbnails out. Little Sparrow Redbreast asks, text or no text? And that's the ultimate thumbnail question. And I'd say a couple things. First of all, in my opinion, design aesthetics matter. So if you are using text or not, don't use too much text. Don't pack the thumbnail so that it's unreadable. Don't use fonts that are hard to read or confusing or that just disappear on the background. Don't restate your title in text on your thumbnail. But if you are going to use text, use as few words as possible. I like to use under 5 if possible, if not just 1, 2, or 3, like some kind of a emphasized type of a thing. And then I'll also say that lately I've been trying to use no text. Of course, you can look at someone like a Peter McKinnon, who's like famous for these beautiful thumbnails, no text, and he uses his title to tell the story. Alternatively, you need to study your niche, because again, look at the top performing videos in your particular channel topic. Sometimes text is very important, because if you're doing a tutorial or a workout or a cooking video, and maybe the text on the thumbnail is actually going to be instructive or help bring clarity to what someone's about to watch, it has less to do with aesthetics and more to do with practicality. I think these are some of the things to consider. And then last of all, test everything. I think that's what we're doing here on Think Media. We experiment, we test, we want to find a design aesthetic that works with also a practicality and something that gets results. And so we're always testing and we're always experimenting with both. My little red sparrow friend. Same Jesse Crouch Crew asks, I just started doing this. Would there be any benefit to going backwards and adding thumbnails or updating the thumbnails to older videos as well? I do think there's benefit to this. When I was partway into my journey at Think Media, I had some early videos that were pretty good content, and the thumbnails, I just didn't put any energy into them at all. So once my design skills up-leveled a bit and I wanted to kind of refresh the videos, I took like a Saturday morning and I just went back and I updated my best videos. I didn't do my whole library. I think that might be wasted energy, but there was a few that I wanted to not only update, but then I re-promoted them, because then I had a new thumbnail, which gave me a new graphic to share on Facebook, to share on Twitter and say, hey, go check out this video. Video might have been 2-3 years old, but now it kind of had a fresh look to it with the new thumbnail. And that also gives it a chance to rank and perform more in the future, because thumbnails are a big deal. If you can get people to click and watch your videos and increase that click-through rate and that average view duration and all of those important YouTube metrics in 2020 and beyond, it can be a game changer for your YouTube channel. So Ben asks, letting go of perfectionism is the hardest part for me. If you change a thumbnail later on down the road, does it affect analytics? Well, Ben, I love the question. First of all, I can totally relate. I mean, there are some days, some nights where I spend probably way too much time over analyzing my thumbnails. I keep tweaking them, I keep testing them, I change them, I lay in bed and I think, I wonder if I should have done it a different color, or if the logo should have been bigger. And then I sometimes will get up and change it more. At some point, Ben, you have to just let it go. Frozen 2, I don't think that song's in the movie. Let it go and release it to the world. Just put it out there. Now, is there benefit to changing the thumbnail down the road? There can be. And there's two things here. Number one, it won't affect your analytics, or it won't affect the algorithm. YouTube won't really know the difference. What they will know is if it gets more click-through rate on it, if it gets better engagement. And so friends of mine that really want their videos to perform well will test and look at their analytics after 3, 4, 5 days, see if their click-through rate is something they're happy with, and then they will go back and change the thumbnail if they think it could be improved. I never do that. I, at some point, make it as good as I possibly can, release it to the world, and then think about the next video. I really believe that for a lot of us, it's your next video that's going to be your best video, not worrying about over-optimizing your past videos. So done is better than perfect. Get it to a good level. Don't overthink it. Guess what? Something's probably wrong with it. Would blue have been better than yellow? Maybe. Would red have been better than pink? I don't know. If you did this face instead of that face, you'll kind of never know at some point. Forward action and massive action is always where the action is. And so, yeah, do it as good as you can, and then put it out there in the world and on to the next video. Jay asks, I think I make an okay thumbnail for my videos. What would you say is the one element that can take it to the next level to be suggested by YouTube? Jay, the top elements for me are, number one, it's got to stand out. Now, that might seem obvious, but I mean, it literally needs to pop off the page in some way. If the colors are dull, if it's messy, if the image, if the story the image is telling is undiscernible, like it's just kind of confusing, then it's not going to work. What you want is it to leap off the page. So one thing to consider is also, if you're trying to rank for a video, you want your video to probably be different than the other videos, or just in some way unique so that it leaps off the page. If you said, what's the one element? Well, there's a few. I think color is a big deal. It doesn't have to be crazy rainbow colors like some YouTube, just super bright and crazy. But I think some pop of color helps it stand out. We've also learned that emotion really helps it stand out. And I know as YouTubers, a lot of times we can go extreme and we're like, with our faces, and then people just imitate that. And I'm guilty of that as well. But there's science behind it. People respond to emotion. Just no emotion at all gets less clicks. If you're happy or sad or confused or suspicious or there's drama, and you do the scared face, and then you talk about the coming doom and gloom because drama is popular and drama gets clicks, then you tie in all those elements together, and those can make your thumbnails much more powerful. So I think emotion, I think color, and then I think clarity. At the end of the day, I think that less is more on thumbnails. If we try to get too many words, too many things, I try to think about ways to tell a story. If I want to say how to build a YouTube studio, I probably can't show the whole studio. You know what I mean? Because if it's too far zoomed out, unless it's a really clean shot, if it's too messy, if it's too busy, if you confuse, you lose. So how can it be colorful, have emotion, be very clickable, and how can you make sure it stays clear and tells the story that you want it to tell? This is a big challenge, Jay, but if you can pull that off, then you've got a winning thumbnail. Okay, so take a deep breath. This YouTube thing is no joke. A lot of work goes into it, but YouTube is one of the most powerful platforms on the planet for getting your message out there, for building a life and a business on your own terms. And so learning this process and mastering shooting videos and creating content is a big deal. And so now we're going to be going into the third part of the series, which is all about editing, right? We've shot our video, we've shot the photography for our thumbnails, we've planned all that out, and now we're ready to take all of our footage, we're gonna capture it on the computer, drop it in Adobe Premiere, and edit. And here's the thing, if you have some kind of a different video editing software, I think that you're still gonna get a lot of insights out of the editing psychology, as well as if you wanna use Adobe, that's what I use. I use the Adobe Creative Cloud, I use Photoshop and Adobe Premiere and Adobe Audition for audio, all under one roof, Lightroom for editing photos that I use for social media. And that's what our whole team uses as well. We buy different seats, and that way we're all able to be on the same software. And so we'll include links to all that kind of stuff in the resource guide. But now it's time to get into the third part of the series, all about editing. So let's just jump right into it. So if you want to level up your content, editing is one of the best ways to do it. And in this video, I'm going to be going through a beginner tutorial on Adobe Premiere about how to edit a YouTube video. I'm also going to be sharing a few tips from my workflow and even some advanced insights. So let's just dive into it right now. Hey, what's up? Sean Cannell here with Think Media, bringing you the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. And right now we're in the middle of a 4-part video series all about how to shoot, do a thumbnail, edit, and then ultimately upload a YouTube video. So you can put out better content, grow your channel faster, and get more views. And if you actually want to watch part 1 or 2, in part 1, we did a whole video on shooting content with the Canon M50 or a similar DSLR or mirrorless camera. In video 2, we talked all about getting the thumbnail ready, and we're already done with that. And now it's time to actually edit our video. And so that's what we're going to be doing right now in part 3. If you missed out on the beginning of the series, I'll link it up on the YouTube card, as well as post a link to that playlist in the description below. But with that, let's dive right into how to edit a video in Adobe Premiere. All right, so step number 1 is take the SD card out of our camera, plug it into our card reader. In this case, I've got an extra long one plugged into my computer with this crazy cable, so I can just easily get to it. But whether you're on a laptop or you have a PC or some kind of a tower, you definitely need an SD card reader. Capture your footage. And right now, I've already actually downloaded it into an external hard drive. And here's how I organize some of my files. I've got my footage folder, and this is all of the footage that I shot in video number 1, including the A-roll and the B-roll. I've actually got the music folder, and we'll talk about that in a bit. The thumbnails, and we already created our thumbnail, but that's where I would save all the image files. And then I've actually got my intro bumper. Now, if you don't have one made, you don't need one, but this is just my little bumper for my Sean Cannell channel. And if you actually want to watch the final video, I'll link to that and post it in the description below as well. If you kind of want to see it either before or after, definitely check it out so you can see the final result. So what we're going to do is we have Adobe Premiere open. And if you've never used Adobe Premiere, it's a little bit more advanced, but I highly recommend it. So if you want to do a trial, I'll put a link to it in the description below. And I use Premiere for editing video, and then I use Photoshop to edit my thumbnails. And so we're going to do a new project here. And we are going to name it, right? So this was a Sean Cannell, is the YouTube channel I'm posting this on. It was a home office tour. So I'm going to do that. And we also, everything else here is pretty much good to go. And what's cool about Premiere lately is that it really will understand. In the past, you could select certain sequences and projects, and this might sound kind of crazy, but you'd have different frame rates, and you maybe need to know some technical details ahead of time. What's cool about Premiere now is you don't need to know those technical details. You can just drop your footage in, and it'll know how to interpret it for you. So here is the Premiere homepage. It says right over in the lower left, import media to start. That is our first step, or we ultimately could drop the media right on the sequence place here, and then that's going to fill in these windows up here with other content once we do that. So I'm actually going to select all of my clips and just drop them straight into the sequence, because now, right now, it's importing all of our footage from what we shot with the Canon M50. All right, so now the footage is actually all on the timeline. Right now, in the lower very left-hand corner, you can see that it's conforming the audio, which actually means that those waveforms are kind of showing up on here. So here's what I mean. If we want to make our 2 main kind of visuals here a little larger, this is our first layer of video and audio. And here's what I want you to think about. Right now on the screen, we can see some of the preview footage. And if you remember in video number 1, we talked about A-roll and B-roll. And so essentially, if this is your A-roll, which is your layer video number 1 here, maybe we want to pull in some B-roll. Here's all of our B-roll clips, but we don't need the audio on there. So I just unlink the audio. Now I've got that clip released. So I could be talking in the A-roll here, but then it could show the B-roll while I'm talking. Does that make sense? So there's the B-roll clip, there's the A-roll clip, and I'm able to just drag and drop and move things all around here in the timeline. And so I'm actually going to delete this because of the order, and I'm going to sort this by name to get all of the files in the order I shot them, because they were in some kind of crazy order when I first dropped them into the sequence. So now, when I take these all into the sequence, here's the cool thing. The main video should just be all the way through here until this is all the main video that I shot. Here's my outro. And what I'm doing on the timeline here is I'm using the hotkeys minus and plus to zoom in, with plus, minus to zoom out. See that? So I can zoom into the edit. And so now, if I actually go to here, this was all the B-roll clips. So I'm going to move those off to the right. And here's the deal. I actually don't need any of the audio on these clips. And so what I did is I right-clicked, I clicked unlink. And so just to clean it up, this is the way I do it, is I just take in this waveform to delete all that audio. This is all B-roll clips. Make sense? So those will go in later. What I'm going to do is start with the A-roll, the audio here. And so I'll turn this up a little so you can hear it. And
Creating, all right, setting up your home office in a way that, all right, setting.
Now, one of my biggest tips when it comes to editing is watching the audio. I've learned so much by being able to, obviously none of this matters, so I can just drag and hold and trim that clip down on the left because I'm restarting, I'm messing up. And it looks to me like I'm actually starting like right here. So let me see.
Hey, what's up? Sean Cannell here, and in this video, I'm going to be doing a home office tour with a bunch of cool home office design ideas, whether that's ergonomics or the various chairs and ways of...
all right, messed up again. So now I'm going to look at this
If you're
one.
looking for some home office design ideas, you're going to love this video.
Now check this out. There's a hotkey called L, and I realize this is a beginner tutorial, but you're kind of seeing inside of my workflow. So ways I go faster is pressing the L button to speed up.
My name is Sean Cannell. I've been full-time entrepreneur for over 4 years now. Freelancing well before that. And working for a home office. So this video, I'll be breaking down some of my favorite design and inspirational images and various posters and things like that, as well as my charging stations and other cool features that will give you some great ideas for your home office. Okay?
Now, a tip there is having a strong hook in your videos. And that was the hook. That was the opener, right? So now I'm actually going to drop in from my file folder the bumper. And if you've got one of these created, what you can do is just have it start right after your intro ends. Boom. So there's the intro, very nice. And now I can cut into the video itself. And the main thing I do is I just work through from left to right, basically, on the edits. And I try to look at the waveform to see when I maybe got the intro right. So it looks like I probably restarted it. Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up, Sean Cannell?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up,
There
Sean
you go.
Cannell?
Okay.
And welcome
4
to my
tries.
channel, hey, what's up, Sean Cannell here, and welcome to my channel, which is all about going further, faster in life. And we're just meeting, I'm actually a full-time entrepreneur that's making great content over on my channel. Today, I want to take you on an office tour, and let's just start right here in my main office. And so we're sitting here at my desk. I've got a couple monitors here, my triangle light, I'm sitting here, and this is where the magic happens. And I actually have a full video out all about this whole setup. So check it out too, and just love it on YouTube part. Let's go through some of these. Well, let's check out what's happening in this room. All right, we'll leave the YouTube part. All right. But let's start out. Let's start out with some of the decor. Let's start out with some of the decor.
All right, so getting rid of all this stuff, going back to the butt.
It's below on the YouTube part. Let's go through some of these.
All right, boom. Little tip right there. One of my favorite features is I can right-click in between and say ripple delete, and then just boom, bring it all back nice and clean. So if we replay this
For home office. Hey, what's up, Sean Cannell here, and
boom, and now we're going into the actual video. And so now you can see what I'm going to do is go through the rest of the edit of the A-roll. I'm going to be just trimming through all of the clips, bringing them back, and then we'll do B-roll after that.
So when I think of home office, all right. So one of the questions I get, all right, so one of the huge priorities for me, so one of the big priorities for me, so one of the big priorities for me in my, home office is inspiration. I love inspiring quotes, motivational messages. I know a lot of questions about these kind of like posters and things. So these are actually from startup.com, those kinds of shit. And so kind of got my people up there. There's also shelves and have some other kind of inspirational images out there. And so I have all the reviews that was at site 6. So it's not so never came out. So in state mix. So I'm going to be honest, that's what we're all kind of going to so we're there because I'm motivational messages, another big theme is ergonomics. In fact, one of my favorite features in my home office is this Herman Miller Arion chair. Now, these chairs, things cost a lot of money. You are probably here's the thing. You are probably going to be you're probably going to be working a lot. Like I've been using this. Now here's the thing. You're probably going to be working a lot. Like I've been using this chair for years now. And it's indestructible. And it has micro adjustments. You can adjust the arm height, every little detail, so that you can keep your posture right and health right. I also got ergonomic keyboard over here. Also, I got Microsoft mouse, but even ergonomic keyboard. And it's on this tray on my desk. I ordered this Amazon, screwed it into the bottom of this IKEA desk, and that allows me to get perfect. And that allows me to get perfect ergonomics while I'm sitting here at my desk to be able to work longer without straining my arms or hurting my body or you. All right, so now let's. Okay, so one note. All right, now one of the tips we shared in the first video was when I'm in front of the video, I had the shotgun mic pointed at me, but when I got behind the camera, I had the shotgun mic pointed back at me, but I was speaking like right into it. So the audio is a little bit louder. So what we're gonna do here in Premiere is I'm just going to go audio gain -3 for now, and that'll let us go a little bit more quiet. All right, so now let's check out the bookshelf. Now all this furniture is from IKEA. I got all this from IKEA. I got my desk over here from IKEA. We moved to Vegas a few years back and just found the ultimate craziness deal. I got all of this stuff for honestly like $600 or something, just ridiculous. This book guide. So that's not all the furniture. But over here, that's also an IKEA bookshelf. So you can see I think lifelong readers or lifelong learners. I read a lot of books. I love to always be leveling up working myself. And then just various decor ideas. This is from the South Africa trip. Another thing that I love is actually having atmosphere. A lot of plants, if possible, have them be real. So you got succulents around here, you got some up here as well. This guy right here, by the way, is the influencing company pack poster, just made custom online. That's the influencer tagline. A couple of Kajabi pins for being in the 1 million club and a couple of targets in our business. Super pumped about those. And some other, and then about those. And some other, even some more vibes. We got a little, and then even some more vibes. Got the doTERRA. Next up for design ideas, let's talk about light. I think we have a couple of targets in our business, super pumped about those. Next up for design ideas, let's talk about light. I think that, especially when you're creating content, it's nice to have a lot of light. And also light helps you stay energized when working. So over here, I've got kind of like LED light from Amazon, changes colors, has a couple different brightness levels. Over the other side, IKEA light there. So that we're not actually working on this light, there's not right there, got a light there. And I've also installed a couple lights, not just custom, nothing really fancy, obviously, vanilla cables. These guys are pure on boats. And so when I'm live streaming at this desk, we're actually shooting videos in front of the desk, like this is my background. Light that is controllable by someone else. But yeah, lighting, something to consider that can really change all this around is getting necessary. But yeah, lighting, something to shot. But so as we're getting through this, a couple things to know. I'm cutting a lot of things out. I'm also trimming restatement of some things. I mean, I noticed that I keep rambling on, and I think, how far back can I go? Can I just, like, if I can cut it, like if it doesn't add to the story, you might as well cut it out. So I'm trying to be, videos should be as long as they need to be, but as short as possible. So always look for ways to slim them down and to try to honor people's time when it comes to the viewer. And then let's talk about power. And then let's just talk about power. And then let's talk about power. Now I actually am a power. Now, for the modern entrepreneur content creator, let's talk. Now, another cool idea is certainly one of
The hotkey I'm using is spacebar to stop and spacebar. One of the hotkeys that I'm using is spacebar to start and stop the video. So I can do spacebar, L to speed up, and plus and minus to zoom in and out on the video.
Now another cool idea is Now another cool idea for the modern entrepreneur here is power supplies. This one. Now another cool idea for the modern entrepreneur and content creator is power supplies. This one right here, I've got plenty of outlets that I can get on top of my desk, as well as USB ports. This is cool one charge for my iPhone right there. You're gonna find those all over the office here. And there's another one here's not the same one, so I'll use this oftentimes as a place where I can charge stuff and why not? Stuff and but now let's look at a couple other cool areas that I love about this office here. And the first one is, of course, the environment. But now let's check out a few other areas. A few of my other favorite spots from this office. A few of my other favorite spots from this office before we head out into the loft. A few of my other favorite spots from this office before we head out into the loft is the lens and camera wall right here. Being a tech reviewer, camera fanatic, and having done this for so long, I built quite the collection. I've built quite the collection of cameras and lenses, and so those all stay organized there. And then I'm also all about organization over here. It's a place where I've got key design bags that will travel out with these little guys for little satchels for camera too. I always like to collect all of the gadgets from the lenses I go to. Oh my gosh, mayhem. But listen, headphones up here. I love these things. Headphones up this kind of cool honest idea. And I like these spinning through. You know, look at here, all the different events and conferences that you're spoken at or attended or having worked for me. Another cool organization idea is headphone hooks. I installed this guy right in here, just screwed it into the wood desk. And I've got kind of my in-ears that I use for live streaming on there, which you put any piece of headphones. Another cool organization idea is headphone hooks. I installed this guy right here, screwed into the wood desk. I've got kind of my in-ears that I use for live streaming on there, too. Piece of headphones. Those are also headphone hooks as well on the wall. And that's how you get to the conversation. Now, one other thought before we head together, that is this. Now, in just a second, I've got a bunch of other cool things to share with you in the loft and So now, in just a second, I've got a bunch of other cool things to share with you in the loft and other office. But if you love this, and so that's how we answer and as things like But I'm a big, all right. Okay, so for a quick update, you can see on our timeline here, we have basically from the intro, we have from the hook, we have the intro right there, and we've gone through all of this editing so far. Now, at this point in the video, I kind of make a joke about this little plant. So what I'm gonna do is add a bars and tone. This is gonna add, so that it goes into my project files right over here. I can drag it in here. This is my favorite way to add like a quick comedy beat. And this is just built right into Premiere. See that? So, and then right after I say succulent, essentially, that's a nice succulent beat. And then it kind of resets attention, a little bit of humor. My goodness, delete all that. That's a nice succulent comic beat. Got that? All right, we'll keep going. But I'm a big atmosphere guy. So I really want to, but I'm a big atmosphere guy and actual light. But I'm a big atmosphere guy. But I'm a big atmosphere guy and actual light if possible. Those things, yes, live streams, natural light in the studio. Obviously, it's nice to look over the backyard and understand that living conditions and how long you have to work with are all very different. Maybe something can change, but when possible, I like being on the second floor, the bigger vision of it. I like having the natural light. I like being able to look over the backyard, the living plants. I do little essential oils for the water and some green for the terra. And here, get that atmosphere light. I just learned that when the office is smelling good, looking good, light, inspiring, and that's my best work. So I'd love to review some of those things that really put you in the creative zone. Some of comments. So that's just a little comments. All right. So that concludes this office. All right. So that concludes this office. So now let's head out to the loft. And so this is kind of just a home bedroom here, or second story, and it's just a very expansive loft out here. We're going to use over here. To head out into the. Okay, so that concludes the main. All right, so that concludes the main office, but we're really just getting started because now it's time to head out to the walk. So this whole thing is based on the second story of our spot here. So the really takes us downstairs. Those guys are we just have business features. So the playgrounds, the gold button, and we've got more books of success with learning business entrepreneurship. The core. Let's keep going and check out some more of the office. View of, but now let's check out like that. But now let's check out. Well, let's keep going and check out some more of the office. So if there was one favorite feature, be this Marshall. If you were to ask me about one of my favorite features of this whole office, it would be this Marshall refrigerator. And in here, you're going to find like soda water, some kind of energy drinks and stuff. It's pretty much all sparkling water, but very cool feature. That is actually available on Amazon, and I love it. So check it out if you want. And speaking of charging stations, there's a power strip right there. There's actually one that is hidden right behind there that people have for lighting right here. And we got a little tower over here as well for the hockey. This is where a lot of the gear happens. You know, super clean. The headphone book, cool. Go there. For standing desk, you gotta have a little record lights as well. And go for the fragrance. And because it's both hands. And but then over here, it's all about the wire. Then over here, we always like to have USB-C cables, all the different tools for whatever kind of. But then over here, we always like to have batteries. Then over here, we always like to have battery charged up power banks, USB-C cables, all kinds of different cables, all different tools for whatever kind of ones I need to create. And over here, this is a work in progress. I'm super proud of this, but just trying to stay as organized as possible. Whether that's gear review, gear we have review, different microphones. This is kind of the tech that is on deck. Right here is the stuff that we want to cover. We have shop videos out there. Okay, so we're getting before. Stuff that we want to cover. We have shot videos about. Share. Well, let's keep going and check. If you were to ask me about, and speaking of charging stations, there's a power strip right there as well. Candle for the as well. Candle for the fragrance, and because it's both ends. But then over here, we always.
Oh, good morning, Jackie. How you doing? You doing all right this morning? Great. Funny as hell. Hey, girl. You all right? Doing well? Just I did fall asleep. All right, what's going on, y'all? Hope y'all having a good morning.
Oh, wow.
And that basically, all right. And so far you've seen, and that kind of takes us, and so far you've seen, and nothing. And then over here, what was I have? Battery charged up, power banks, USB-C cables, all kinds of different cables, all different tools. So that's from my mom, and not that you asked, but this right here is the restroom for the office. So that drives the title together. Some of that right, this is my wife. That's trying to lights. And so far you've seen the bulk of the office. We're here in the loft. Here's that out. It's over here. Here's my other. I'll show you. This over bonus. All right, so let's check. Okay, so let's just check out the second office and prepare yourself. This one is a work in progress right now. Out of our hideaway. And here, I've got another standing desk. We've got some gear we're actually building out. Podcast studio. We've got a King's Flipboard. We're doing some training. We just learn a lot of storage in general from various light kits that can be reviewed. But we're working on some campaigns, some self-shelving, and some podcast recording, video shooting, recording ready for now. So that'll be coming in the future.
All right, so a quick check-in here. We basically have all of our A-roll, right? I told the story from beginning to end of walking people through the office tour. So now it's all laid out in the timeline up until this point. I did shoot the outro with a different lens, a little bit of a blurry background to kind of switch things up, just to show kind of the full use of the M50 as a kit. And so let me just cut to that outro. I think I can see it right on here. Hey, again, I'm looking at the WAV file. You see how much I messed up, like 1, 2, or 3 times. And then eventually I know that when I start, the last time is the time I got it right? So I can always just get rid of the beginning of all that stuff. And then boom. And there's the whole video. So look what we've done. We've got the whole A-roll laid down. And then the next thing we're going to do really quick is create the end card. So I'm going to open up Photoshop to do this. Now, I've already spent the time building a template, which allows me to have the subscribe button up there. Remember that when you have an end card on YouTube, it can be a maximum of 20 seconds. So I already have this template created, so I'm just going to change the top video call to action that will end up on this video. I'm going to give a link to maybe a different video I've done. So how to make money on YouTube, great. And then watch another video. That one will be recommended by them. So all I have to do here is go save as. I'm going to drop JPEG on that guy and throw it in a most recent file. How to make money on YouTube, and watch how cool this is. Now all I have to do is drop in this end card into my timeline, and that'll be the outro of the video.
Inspired and productive. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Thanks again for checking out this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Now, so I've dropped the end card in there. It doesn't need to be up there for the entire time. I usually only want it up there like 10 seconds or so. And so now I actually want to do music next. So there's a lot of different options for music. I actually have a video here on Think Media with some of the best free options. So if you want to watch that, click or tap the YouTube card, or I'll put it in the description below. But if there was one site that I feel like is the best all around for most YouTube creators, it's Epidemic Music. And they just have good pricing. It's very affordable if your channel's not very large. If you have a large channel, it's still affordable, but of course you can afford it as you start making more money. And so I already pulled up, as we saw in the beginning, the music folder. And so this is some of the songs I already looked up on Epidemic Music. And so one of the reasons why I love Epidemic is because you can really get clear on what music you want fast by just doing something like this. Maybe you say, okay, the mood I want is hopeful. The movement of it, like the pacing, busy, frantic. No, I kind of just want it to be smooth. And then the genre is electronic and dance. I want like beats. So then what it does is it only is showing you hopeful, smooth, electronic and dance. So we have old school hip hop, beats, disco. You can see the tempo, the beats per minute. You can actually see that as hopeful and smooth here, the energy level. Just Epidemic gives you so many details. So I spent some time picking out some good music. Okay, so for the outro, I want that end song to like drop heavy. So I have this song that actually has some lyrics in it, and that is copyright free though, because it's off of a site.
You guys, I'll be back on about 7. Love you guys. Peace.